Good evening. It is 5:30, so we'll call the meeting to order. I'd remind you to turn your cell phones to silent or vibrate, and then please let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our city clerk, Chris, will take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Here.
Councilmember Rowe?
Here.
Councilmember Stevens?
Here.
Councilmember Myers?
Here.
Councilmember Berg?
Here.
Mayor Lazio?
Here.
Items on the consent agenda. Minutes from regular meeting number 30 on October 6, 2020 as presented. Acknowledge August financial statement and payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. Canvasser solicitor application for John Lee Boyer to perform as a street musician playing familiar acoustic music on the sidewalk in the downtown Main Street area from October 15th, 2020 to October 15th, 2021, weather permitting. Mayor's reappointment of Gordon A. Strope and Edward Lewis to the Ottumwa Housing Authority, terms to expire 11/11/2022, and Mike Sammons to the Ottumwa Housing Authority, term to expire 11/22/2022. Renewal of the lease with Pitney Bowes for a term of 60 months and a total amount of $17,480.40. Approve the purchase of one Eltron OSCR 360 high-resolution camera imaging capture kit and one Eltron OSCR 360 desktop presentation package for $18,348.90 for the Ottumwa Police Department. Award the towing contract for the Ottumwa Police Department to Darren's Towing and authorize the purchasing agent to sign the contract. Beer and/or liquor applications for Richmond and Ferry BP at 720 Richmond Avenue, Benchwarmers Eatery and Sports Lounge at 2209 Romer Avenue with outdoor service area, Fine Liquor and Tobacco at 819 B Albia Road, and Carradine Wine Company at 620 Church Street, all applications pending final inspections.
Is there a motion?
Can I ask a question first? Is it typical on item B3 to have a 1-year permit for that?
It's not a permit that we even have. There's no charge and he's not taking any money for it. He just wants to be able to walk around downtown and play his guitar for people.
Okay.
Move the consent agenda then as presented.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there approval for tonight's agenda? Need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Item D, I'd like to call on City Administrator Phil Rath to give us an update and make comments that he's going to share with us tonight.
Okay. All right. I have a few items on the agenda and a few people that will be coming forward. Real quickly, though, I just wanted to acknowledge one thing here. It's the last council meeting a couple weeks ago, I accidentally answered the telephone as City of Monroe. It's the previous city I worked for. Sure, it was partly out of habit, having worked there for almost 10 years. And partly it may have been out of nostalgia, as it was a year ago that the city and I were negotiating my departure from there. Faced with an ethical dilemma, I was not willing to sway from. I resigned from that position, and I truly feel that their loss is now Ottumwa's gain. So a year ago today was my last day there, and I am happy to be here and working for the city. All right. Well, that said, with regards to the agenda, we have Tim Ash and I think Andy Wartenberg are going to present the Babe Ruth World Series 2021 will be coming back to Ottumwa. So we're going to come up and make a quick presentation.
If you want me to take my mask off or not.
Sure.
So my name is Tim Ash. I'm the president of the Ottumwa Babe Ruth. The reason we're here before you guys today is in 2021 in August, for a 2-week period, we'll be hosting the 14-year-old World Series. So So we'll have 9 teams from across the nation, from Hawaii to New York. On these teams, there's over 150 players, managers, plus their families. The Babe Ruth task force includes them, umpires, and then other officials that are coming to town. So for a 2-week period, these people will be making their home Ottumwa. And so what we're looking for is a huge, garners a huge exposure for the community. It was last year in 2016. I think at the time, the city contributed $25,000 to help us with the World Series. I wasn't on the board then, but back then in 2016, there was close to 9,000 individuals who passed through the gates. It's estimated that the World Series brought in $3.24 million impact to the community. That's according to the National Association of Sports Commission. Each family spent roughly $2,300 at that time. That doesn't include the local team. So we're reaching out for a similar contribution of $25,000 from the city to help upgrade our electrical system, the new panels, moving in the high voltage transformer, installing the LED lights, as well as facility and ground upgrades. So our goal is to raise $130,000, which we currently have raised over $25,000. So that's why we're here.
Okay. Andy, did you want to make some comments too?
Just a couple of quick notes. A couple of things that I just want everyone to be aware that this is a very, very not complicated, but there's a lot of work to be done. And
Microphone. You step up to the microphone, please.
Step up to the microphone so we can hear
So we
you.
can capture you at home.
I just wanted everyone here to know that this is really a joint effort between Ottumwa Babe Ruth, the CVB, the city, the county, Legacy Foundation, GoPip. So this is going to be broad-based. And the other thing I do want to mention, in addition to the impact, of 3.2 million, there's going to be some tremendous exposure for Ottumwa media-wise. We're already working with Babe Ruth headquarters. So it's good exposure for the city as well. Just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Good. Okay, Tim, thank you for your information. We'll take that under advisement and get a staff recommendation and come back in a future
Mayor,
meeting.
Can I ask one question real quick?
Certainly.
Mayor? Andy, do you plan on applying for the Regional Sports Authority grant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's already in the works.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
I know that one of my predecessors did apply for it and got it in 16. So we are working on that. There's 50,000 right there.
And if I may, Mayor, Tim, Andy, my wife and I at least went to every day of games, not to every game, but what that did for the community, the fellowships, how those teams left our city and everything, it was a really fantastic experience. So we're looking forward to it again.
It's good to hear.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Bill, go ahead.
Okay, next up is, just wanted to report on a special work session for next Tuesday, the 27th. It's primarily discussion on capital funding projects, more so centered on the financial aspect and how to look at that. So we won't be establishing the capital budget, have a general overview and looking at how to fund future capital projects. So plan on that for next Tuesday. That will be in this room here at 5:30, I believe. The next thing is Trick or Treat in Ottumwa. We are still planning on hosting the Trick or Treat hours. We have shortened it a little bit, is scheduled from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Obviously, we are still in the midst of a pandemic, and so we ask everybody to follow as safe a practices as possible. If you have concerns about it and didn't want trick-or-treaters coming to your house, please leave your porch lights off. That's usually an indicator that you have candy to give out. And then also, if you're worried about your children, don't take them out either then. So it's definitely an available option for those based on your comfort levels with participation. All right, and Fred Zeisiger with a Schmidt update.
Thank you, Phil, Mayor, and Council for having us tonight. This is actually our first SMID update. And just to give you a little background on what the SMID is, if people at home are joining us and new staff as well. A SMID district is a self-supporting municipal improvement district. And Main Street started having these conversations back in early 2018. So we're a couple of years into this whole process, but we had our first meeting May 15th of 2018. And to approve or pass a SMID, you need to have 25% of the property owners on board and at least 25% of the assessed values in favor of it. We ended up getting about 40% of the owners to sign on and had about 70% of the combined assessed value with those 37 to 40% of the owners on board. At the time that we were having the property owners sign that petition, we also asked them if they would be interested in being on the committee that would help decide, what how those dollars would be spent. So we had several property owners that did that. Council did approve the SMID on November 6th of 2018. And the SMID district pretty much mirrors the Main Street district. It's about 16 blocks in area, with the boundaries from on the west side being Marion Street, on the east side Jefferson, kind of fluctuates a little bit between 4th and 3rd Street on the north and then to the river. So about 16 blocks. And then we divided that district into 3 zones. So there's the first zone pays $1 per 1,000 in evaluation. Zone 2 pays $2 and zone 3 pays $3 per 1,000 in evaluation. The dollars raised from this SMID tax has to be respent within the district and then being decided upon by the committee on how those dollars are spent. Early on, when we formed the committees, we decided that the committee members would serve a 3-year term. So we did that at our first meeting. They drew numbers and kind of divided that up, staggered the terms out for this first committee, and we will replace the first 3 this coming July. So we are kind of staggering those out, and of course, those will be replaced with property owners in downtown. The other first action they did was selected a committee chair. And our committee chair this year is David Euling. And I'm going to turn it over to David to kind of finish up the updates.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thanks for having us. This year's been an unusual year. As you guys know, we got a little bit of a late start getting the committee together. But we did get the committee together. It consists of 11 people. There are 9 property owners. There's a representative from the city, and there's a representative from Main Street. I serve as a representative from Main Street. Holly serves as a representative from the city. The rest of the committee is made up of Claudia Gates, Tom Schaefer, Anthony Kirshner, Dee Kirshner, John Helgerson, Tricia Smith, Fred Jenkins, Rod Curtis, and Tim Schwartz. Now, Fred comes to the meetings also. He's not a voting member of that group. So we also have put a budget together, which we have to have, and we're going to get approximately, looks like around $26,000. And so when we set up this budget, we just broke it into different categories. The largest category is for beautification, and that's about 30%. The next category, 25%, is maintenance. Third category, new business, startup fund or building fund, is 20%. Administration costs are 20%, and then we have a reserve of 5%. So to give you a couple examples of what we're working on the beautification piece, which is the largest piece, we are looking at enclosures for trash cans and dumpsters. And if any of you have paid attention, if you're in the parking lot behind Appanoose Rapids, there's a very nice enclosure down there. Many businesses use those dumpsters behind there, and you don't even know that they're there. So one of the things that we're looking at is placement around the city in this district where we can have these enclosures. So again, anybody that walks through any alley, any street, these things are nice. You don't even notice that they're there. So that's one of the things that we're working on right now. Also, second category, largest category, is maintenance. Well, one of the important things is our Main Street looks amazing right now, right? But we've got pavers down there. And guess what? Those pavers need cleaned twice a year. And so we're looking at getting a piece of equipment bought that we will be able to clean those pavers with. And again, expense on that is about $25,000. So again, we're in the beginning stages of this, and we're trying to come up with any way where we can get grants. We can, get money from anywhere to get this piece of equipment bought. And so again, we're talking with Larry about that and making sure that what we're going to get bought is going to make sense. And we've got a lot of work to do on that. But those are just a couple of examples of some of the things that we're working on. And again, this budget is preliminary. This is our first year. And so again, those are some of the things that we're working at. Do you have any questions for us at all for Fred or I? All right. If not, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and we'll have you come back again and give us an update.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. And next up under my report is an update regarding the request to revisit the Ottumwa Human Rights Commission. I believe Councilman Dolby had mentioned this at the last meeting, kind of an update or follow up on that. And I see there are some individuals in the crowd tonight that had brought this forward in the first place. And so I wanted to kind of provide that update. The Human Rights Commission and the Civilian Oversight Committee were a couple of things that were mentioned previously, that the city staff is working on these. Ideally, what we're looking at is having something back to the council for review around the first of the year, the first or second meeting of January. What we're doing is we're gathering information. We're looking at different communities that already have things in place. I was in the International City Manager Association, the organization that I participate in, has a big focus on this now. There's a site dedicated or a page dedicated on their website. The last monthly publication was completely focused on that and the discussion of equity and inclusion, talking about the city equity officers, the new CEO as they called it. And so since this is obviously such an important topic, want to gather the history from the original Human Rights Commission that was here, take a look at what worked, what didn't work, and what might work going forward. And so to do that, and also gather any input from the community at large that has an interest, to make sure that we have something that's going to be effective and a right fit for the city of Ottumwa. Looking at bringing that back around the beginning of the year. So if anyone has any council members, any members of the public have any advice or insight on that, please feel free to stop by my office or send me a message. We can set up a meeting and discuss ideas and topics related to that.
Very good.
Thank you.
That's a good segue into, we have a couple of people who have filled out sheets tonight. We want to talk about civil rights, so I think it would be appropriate to call them up at this point. So Rochelle Henry. And the other one is Lorraine Euling. So we have.
Okay, thank you so much for letting me speak. I just wanted to give some input into, as you're reaching out to others, I had reached out to the executive director of the Human Rights Commission in Waterloo, Reverend Abraham Funches, and they have established quite a good human rights commission in terms of they're very active in their community. They actually have cited some of the benefits as they see it, and there's more on their website, but just high level, addressing and redressing discrimination in employment and housing is the benefit of having a robust human rights agency operative in the city. It holds everyone accountable to help make the community more responsive to the social human service needs of community citizens. It also makes the community more attractive economically, as your Chamber of Commerce can tout that they work with human rights to make the community more inclusive through the enforcement of key initiatives and come with the work. One of the things that they focused on is, housing complaints and employment complaints, and they have managed to recoup or recover over $2 million for their claimants. This has been since 2010. Reverend Funches was very proud of that fact because they've been very aggressive in showing the community that they're there for them, because this has been more than they've ever recovered since their inception in 1966. But some of the other things they've done, Fair Chance Initiative Ordinance, they presented that recently this year in front of their city council, which was basically letting those who had criminal convictions able to not have to check that box saying, they have a conviction at the beginning of the interviewing process, but being able to do that towards the end once they are a viable candidate. Of course, obviously, there's some jobs that require that, so those would be exempt. Also, just a couple of other things in terms of the things they did in the community. They're very visible in the community. They do a community book read where they partnered with the University of Northern Iowa. And for example, they did the Abraham Kindy's How to Be an Anti-Racist, where they formed different people in the community, formed Facebook groups and read the book, talked about it. People from the government offices were on a panel and talked about it. So my point is they get the community involved also in these efforts to show how important this is. And then lastly, they've done a bunch of other things, but something else that was really neat is they've done freedom tours, where in conjunction with their book reads, they then take groups of people like to Selma, different places where they can see different parts of the civil rights movement and they can experience it firsthand. So my point is to all of this was just to say they're doing some great things. Yes, their population is greater than Ottumwa, but I think there's some things we can learn from them in terms of why the Human Rights Commission is important. So thank you.
Thank you, Rosha.
And again, I'm Lorraine Euling, and I'm talking about the same topic. We know that Ottumwa is already diverse. We want it also to be welcoming and inclusive. Having a local commission will allow Ottumwa to identify trends of discrimination, to address discriminatory practices on a local level. It will allow us to tailor awareness and training to local needs. And it also gives us greater accountability. So if there's a business that we local folks shop at and they're doing these discriminatory practices, there's a lot more leverage there. There's a lot more accountability than if there's just an agency in Des Moines that does this behind closed doors and folks don't know about it unless they want to go and research what claims have been made. So, and I think having the commission under the umbrella of the city is going to be a critical piece of this to make it successful. I think that gives it more teeth and more credibility. So please take all of that into consideration when you're making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. Those are the only two I have. Okay. Let's move on to item F then, department recommendations. So Phil, I'll turn this over to you.
Okay.
It's over to me first. Request to reject proposals received for RFP for curbside collection of non-commercial solid waste, recyclables, bulky items, and yard waste within the city of Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation: reject all proposals received for RFP for curbside collection of non-commercial solid waste, recyclables, bulky items, and yard waste within the city of Ottumwa, Iowa.
Okay, thank you. Let me first preface this is the first of three items that are on the agenda. And we only need to act on one of them in the affirmative. So if the intent is to select one of the two firms, we won't have to do much else with this, but I'll kind of run through this and then the same thing with the other two proposals. So at just a quick history for anyone who isn't familiar. The city had presented requests for proposals on the garbage service, which is coming up for, or it's set to expire in the beginning of July of next year. And so as a result, we put out requests for proposals for the curbside collection of non-commercial solid waste, recyclables, bulky items, and yard waste for the city. And this, we received two proposals. I think most people are aware of now. One was from the local provider, Bridge City Sanitation, and the other was from Sparta Waste Services out of Urbandale. And so there was a staff recommendation that was made based off of reviews of the proposals and interviews of the two firms. The recommendation was to offer that to Sparta. When that was brought up before the council, there was a a decision made to kind of hold a public hearing or meeting, and on September 29th, that was done to have further discussion with the two firms and be able to take more comment from the public and for the council to question the two firms on their proposals and how they would provide those services. Prior to the vote that night, which was to retake up the resolution recommending Sparta, the question was asked, what does a yes vote mean? Well, a yes vote in that case would have meant that the contract would have gone to Sparta for the 10-year period. That's what was outlined in that resolution and the associated request for proposal. And in a vote against would mean one of three things, which is why there's three things before you tonight. One is that the city could present a resolution to offer the contract to Bridge City, the other provider. One was to present a different resolution and still offer the contract to Sparta. And the third option, the one that we're discussing right now, was to reject the proposals and essentially start the process over with the revised terms. So there was a number of things that were brought up at the meeting on September 29th that kind of changed the scope of the contract a little bit. Rather than the 10-year contract with the possibility of a 5-year extension, there was some discussion about a 1 year with a 3-year extension and another 3-year extension, or something like a 1, 3, 6, 9, different things like that, and some other things as far as if the services aren't being provided the way we'd like, was there a way to end the contract early? And we always try to negotiate those kinds of terms into a contract. But when it comes down to the practice, it becomes very difficult to actually enforce some of those exit clauses. And it can be costly at the same time and dealing with attorneys and such. So based on all of that conversation, you have the one recommendation here is to reject both proposals, revise the request to the terms that the council was kind of indicating at that September 29th meeting, and then resolicit that for the services under those terms. So I don't know if there's any questions from council members.
So, excuse me, council, do you have a preference? If we're going to have a lot of discussion, I'd like to have a motion before we get into a lengthy discussion. You can either accept or reject or modify the recommendation of staff. I'll make a recommendation, but I would first ask a question, Administrator Phil. So a vote no means that H1 and H2 are still on the table.
Correct. Yeah. If you're voting not to reject the bids or the proposals, then you're taking up H1 or H2 or.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, are there any questions for Phil or for Kevin or whoever, staff? Okay, hearing none, then the motion is to reject all proposals. Motion's made and seconded. Take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
No.
Councilmember Rowe?
No.
Councilmember Stevens?
No.
Councilmember Myers?
No.
Councilmember Berg?
No.
Okay.
All right.
Wapello County Board of Supervisors request for partnership funds for Test Iowa site in Ottumwa. Recommendation, enter into a 28E agreement with Wapello County to apply for FEMA funding to provide financial support for the Test Iowa site in Ottumwa, Iowa.
Is there a recommendation? Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation is presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Any questions? That would be directed to Phil.
Yeah, Phil, what would our exposure be here, and how much dollars are we talking about? What's the total price of the Test Iowa site? What is our ask?
Right. So at current, the city received a letter dated October 5th. The estimated cost for the project is $127,228.56. That is for a 13-week period of time. I don't know beyond that if there's an intention to go further. The 50% of that, which is what was requested, would be $63,614.28 to the city. I had asked some questions in the past. I haven't received those responses yet. However, with the 28E agreement and that being contingent upon receiving FEMA dollars, if we were to go down that path, the only harm is in actually applying for that and not getting it. We received some of the CARES Act money for the city, but that is essentially replenishing money that we had spent for other things. Now, the avenue that we were able to do that through was through our public safety, 25% of our public safety budget. However, we saw, holes in our budget in other areas that we were not able to recover. Lost revenue for the beach and Bridge View Center, namely, that we won't at this time be able to recover. And so those funds are essentially spoken for in one way or another. This is an additional thing that we obviously hadn't budgeted for. I mean, nobody budgeted for this pandemic or those costs. I think there's some real value in testing and having that. In large part, it is a function of the county and for public health. And so when you have those resources, there's that. The big part of that, though, I think, is trying to get into that 28E agreement, defining the time frame. Is it established to the 13 weeks? Maybe there's an opportunity to expand. It's dependent upon the FEMA funds. We're not in control of this project as far as setting it up. And so, having that be that part of that 28E agreement, the application and or the continuation of that going towards the county would be one way to help with that too. We don't have the costs, we don't have the budgets, we don't have those numbers that are going to be necessary to follow through with the funding request.
Right, and I would agree with that. And considering that the cases are not going down, in fact, they're looking like they're on the rise again. I think it's something. When money is to be spent, I think not only is a good partnership with the county, but when money is to be spent, the people are who we serve and represent, and their welfare is what we're in charge of. And so I think at this time, even though we have other things that are going to require some additional funding, like we have in the past, this is an important one, and I fully support it. It's a good opportunity to partner with them.
I would just echo that with knowing from what I've heard that it's taking a long time to be able to get into the places that are offering tests outside other places in town when we're looking at economic development and getting people back to work as quickly as possible to their jobs, being able to get them tested quickly is paramount to be able to do that. So I think it's really important to continue moving down that path.
And I would agree with both of them. I mean, I would agree, I think, to some amount of funding, but I understand there are several questions you've asked that we haven't had answers to. But the other part of it, I don't know about the rest of the council, but I'm concerned a little bit about this developing into a 28E, because a 28E that we've had with the solid waste, I've never thought that the formula for that has been in our favor or disfavor. It just, at times it hasn't worked. So could it be done in some fashion other than by a 28E?
That's possible, and pending further on the agenda where we have the attorney proposal, I think it's something we definitely run through the city attorney for the right kind of agreement. So you got.
Thank
you. Sorry, I guess we got a different response here.
In order to receive CARES Act funding or FEMA funding for another entity that is not governed by us, we have to have a 28E agreement. It's required.
Yeah, I'd still like to hear that from an attorney. Thank you. I don't distrust you. It's just.
I have the paperwork for the FEMA.
It's complex.
To submit the information to FEMA, or for CARES Act, we have to have a 28E agreement. Otherwise, we can't receive any funding.
Now, if we were looking at a different funding source, if we were looking at using our own general fund money or other things, some other agreement might be in place. The 28E, though, as Kayla was saying, is the FEMA specific tool.
Thank you.
CARES Act tool.
And I think that this resolution is to move forward with a 28E agreement, not to move forward with funding, but for funding based on that 28 agreement, and if we're approved for funding from FEMA.
So you would bring the funding request back if
would they get approved?
Right, and then if it gets approved, then we can move forward with supporting the test site for the county.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded. It's to authorize Phil to enter into a 2080 agreement with Wapello County after consultation with our attorney. So that's what you're voting on. Take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
No.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1. Okay, thank you. Okay, Steve?
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the vacate and disposition of city-owned real property known as Parcel A, a portion of Wildwood Park located on West Finley Avenue, 216 Wildwood.
This is a public hearing, so Kevin, you have the floor, and then we'll entertain any comments from the public.
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution will vacate a portion of Wildwood Park known as Parcel A to Dennis R. and Linda K. Cottrell, who are the owners of 216 Wildwood, which is contiguous with Parcel A.
Is there a motion? Well, excuse me, is there anyone in the audience that wants to address this particular item? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this particular item.
So moved.
Second. Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Resolution number 200, 2020, approving the disposition of city-owned real property known as Parcel A, a portion of Wildwood Park located on West Finley Avenue, 216 Wildwood, to Dennis R. and Linda K. Cottrell, who are the owners of 216 Wildwood, which is contiguous with Parcel A. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 200, 2020.
Is there a motion? Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
What's all this for?
Well, it's been going on some time. It's a good question, actually. It's been going on some time, probably around a year and a half ago. I had a code enforcement issue that I needed to go look into. And so when I arrived at the properties, prior to going to the properties, I should say, usually we'll examine the beacon, the map to see what the whole scenario is before we get there. And when I did that, I realized that I did need to go out there because apparently there was a building, a private building on city-owned property. Because when Finley was originally put in as a street, I'm assuming it was the best pathway, the highest point and the best pathway for it. A bell curve basically shaped piece of property was left cut off from Wildwood proper by Finley, the way it went through there in that very sharp curve just immediately after you take left off of Wildwood. So it was the building was significantly on the city property. And so at that point, a few decisions have to be made. And it turned out that the building was actually permitted and that a couple of different city offices were involved in working with the project at the time. Now, Beacon didn't exist at that time. And I'm quite sure that this is years ago, probably 8-10 years ago. And so I'm assuming the city officials who went out there were assuming it actually was on private property because it was so far off of the streetway there. But it wasn't. And so at that point, we needed to do what we did not very long ago, maybe 3 years ago. We had another piece, if you remember, that was on the city park to a slight degree. And we started that process. And so here we are today. We've had those properties split into 3 different pieces. And each piece goes to the contiguous landowner. So this solves the property dispute that got me there in the first place. It also solves the discrepancy of having the private structure on public property, which of course is a liability risk for us as a community. But we established a 50-foot right-of-way consistent through the area that matches the right-of-way that's also evident when you get further down Finley. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Thank you, Kevin.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the vacate and disposition of city-owned real property known as Parcel B, a portion of Wildwood Park located on West Finley Avenue, 218 Wildwood.
Okay, Kevin, you're up again.
thank you, Your Honor. This resolution will vacate a portion of Wildwood Park known as Parcel B
to Oreda and Christina Vingzaran, who are the owners of 218 Wildwood, which is contiguous to parcel B.
Is there anybody that wants to speak to this issue? Okay. All right. I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Resolution number 201, 2020, approving the disposition of city-owned real property known as Parcel B, a portion of Wildwood Park, located on West Finley Avenue, 218 Wildwood, to Oreda and Christina Fengsarion, who are the owners of 218 Wildwood, which is contiguous with Parcel B. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 201, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the vacate and disposition of city-owned real property known as Parcel C, a portion of Wildwood Park located on West Finley Avenue, 1725 West Finley.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution will vacate a portion of Wildwood Park known as Parcel C to Lyle and Twyla Talbert, who are owners of 1725 West Finley Avenue, which is contiguous with Parcel C.
This is also the part of the public hearing. Anybody here to speak on that issue? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Pop and Skip. Okay. Okay.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Resolution number 202, 2020, approving the disposition of city-owned real property known as Parcel C, a portion of Wildwood Park located on West Finley Avenue, 1725 West Finley Avenue, to Lyle and Twyla Talbert, who are the owners of 1725 West Finley Avenue, which is contiguous with Parcel C. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 202, 2020.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the vacate and disposition of city-owned property located at an alley lying between and adjoining lots 18, 19, and 20 in Highland Park Addition in Ottumwa, Wapello County, Iowa.
Okay, Kevin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution will vacate the eastern portion of the city alley contiguous with and to the south of 1206 West Highland Avenue to Aaron Barnett, 1206 the owner of 1206. He will be acquiring the other contiguous parcels along this portion of alley from tax sale certificate as well. Apparently, and Public Works and Engineering have approved this vacation. Hearing was set for today. So.
Okay. Public hearing, is there anyone in the audience who wants to address this? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Resolution number 211, 2020, approving the vacate and disposition of an alleyway lying between and adjoining lots 18, 19, and 20 in Highland Park Addition in the city of Ottumwa, Wapello County, Iowa, to Aaron Barnett, who owns 1206 West Highland Avenue. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 211, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Kevin? Hard to find, but I did see it.
Yes, it was covered up a little bit.
Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the disposition of city-owned real property described as lots 18 and 19 in HC Chambers subdivision of lots 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30 in MJ Williams's sixth addition to the city of Ottumwa, Wapello County, Iowa, commonly known as 517 South Ward Street.
This is a public hearing. Kevin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Southeast Iowa Dream Center offered the city $125 for 2 vacant lots on South Ward Street upon which they intend to construct a new dwelling. The center is not for profit organization and will sign a development agreement stipulating the new dwelling will be constructed within 3 years, or the city may request the return of property. The lots will be transferred by a quitclaim deed. All costs of conveyance will be paid by the buyer.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wants to address this item? Okay, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Holly.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Resolution number 217, 2020, accepting the offer and approving the sale of city-owned property described as lots 18 and 19 in H.C. Chambers subdivision of lots 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30, and M.J. Williams' sixth addition to the city of Ottumwa, Wapello County, Iowa, commonly known as 517 South Ward Street, to the Southeast Iowa Dream Center for $125 and authorizing signing of the development agreement. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 217, 2020.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions for Kevin? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Resolution number 228, 2020, accepting the proposal from Bridge City Sanitation of Ottumwa, Iowa for the collection of non-commercial solid waste, recyclables, bulky items, and yard waste within the city of Ottumwa, Iowa, beginning July 4th, 2021. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 228, 2020.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Point of order, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you need to take that vote. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me,
Any questions or any discussion?
I have a question for Phil. So when we had the session at Bridgeview Center, there was discussion on items that weren't in Bridge City's proposal, but then at that meeting, they had said that they were willing to include those things as things they would do. So if accepting a proposal, does that then null that out, or are those things that can be discussed in a contract negotiation? And if there's not agreed upon within a contract negotiation, does then it go back to the floor?
Yeah, so the resolution, kind of outlines that whole process. In the end, or accepting, or if 228-2020 is passed, it's to accept proposal from Bridge City Sanitation for the period of 10 years, commencing July 4th and running through June 28th, 2031. Be it further resolved, the City Council directs the City Administrator to coordinate with staff to work out the details of a contract incorporating contractual provisions identified by the City Council at the September 29th, 2020 meeting. This is where the technicality comes in, and where my recommendation was to reject is we run into the questions of law a little bit. Both companies submitted their proposals based off of what was outlined in the RFP. During the September 29th meeting, there was discussion, and I believe, to my recollection, both companies had said, yes, we'd be willing to agree to those things. So I think there's some room to be able to negotiate those into an agreement. Now, if we move forward and it's awarded to Bridge City, and the city and Bridge City can't come up with an agreeable contract, it leaves us out there as far as, what's the next step? Yes. So approving this says you want to give it to Bridge City for that 10-year period, and we try to work out some of those details. The time frame, though, with the 10 years is what was originally put in the RFP. I think we're kind of locked into that. There was some talk about having surveys and follow through, and if the services weren't met, having those outs. That comes into the contractual aspects of that. So I think there's some room to move, but the terms are laid out by the RFP.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I got a few final comments on this issue.
Certainly. Go ahead, Matt.
I think we all know what this contract means. It's a 10-year contract for $19 million. And it's going to be awarded to a company who is going to provide service to our citizens over the next 10 years. And I would just get out of the way my reaffirmation of support for Sparta Waste Services. I think their proposal and interview was far superior. Some of those reasons being state-of-the-art equipment they already have in use with GPS and cameras. They have pioneered new technology in the waste and recycling business. And I believe they pay for quality employees. And I believe that is critical to providing a good service, especially here in our community. And it doesn't hurt to employ people at a good wage. And I think it could possibly lead to an expansion of services in other areas close to ours, which is another advantage. And I think we need to evaluate this very carefully on how we would evaluate any other proposal, whether that service would be a local provider or a non-local provider. And in the bigger picture, I believe it speaks to a couple different things. One is what kind of service we choose to give the people we represent. I think the current provider has strived to do that, but I think has fallen short for quite a few years. And I believe it all comes down to not whether you have complaints or happy people, upset people. You're going to always have that in this kind of service. But I think it comes down to looking at the willingness or the ability to improve and continually improve. And then tonight, I have remained unconvinced that they could show or do that in the future, based on some issues and incidences we've had in the past, such as an incident with our landfill supervisor, using profane language and being kicked out of the landfill. And that could be an employee issue. Many employers have employee issues. That's not pinned on one particular person or company. But the way in which they handle that speaks to their management style. And removing that employee to another part of the city just moves the problem. It doesn't solve it. And I think that goes and speaks to how they manage that company. It speaks to how we want our employees to be treated and how we listen to what they recommend to us. Now, we don't always agree with what they say, but they deal with these folks on a day-to-day basis. They handle the phone calls, both good and bad, and I think some consideration should be given to the recommendations they make. And the third and final thing I'll say, and be done with this, it's how we evaluate the data that is presented. How do we look at two proposals, pick those apart, study them, and make sure we're making the best decision? And so, in closing on the issue, it's nice to have this come to a closing tonight. It's been quite a journey. I believe Sparta would be the best decision this council could make, but like I said last time, I'll be happy with whatever vote is taken, and I wish the best to the provider that we choose. I hope they can provide a good service to the community. Thank you.
Mayor, I would go back to my point of order.
Okay.
I had asked, and typically when a recommendation has been made, we vote and get a second on that recommendation. And so my only pause was to allow for that. And if we could get back to the recommendation having been made, voting on it, then I still have a question that I'd like to ask.
Okay.
Now, am I incorrect? Don't we usually, Chris, when a recommendation, you've read a recommendation, don't we usually have it, someone says yes, they move the recommendation and it's seconded, and then we get into discussion?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, could
By
we do
Robert's
that?
rules.
Which we did. We did.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear the vote.
Councilmember
Well, we
Rowe
didn't
had
vote.
made
We just
the
did a first and a
recommendation.
second.
That's what I'm saying. We didn't vote, and typically we vote on doing that, don't we?
Well,
We
you're,
vote
Okay,
after
Okay, let me
discussion.
make it
Yeah.
simpler then.
Yeah.
A point of order, Mayor. I called the question.
Well, if you call the question, we need to have a vote on the question, and that takes a 2/3 majority to cut off any discussion.
Well, you have to have a second to my point. And I've called for the question.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion then to cut off discussion takes a 2/3 vote, so take the roll.
Just a moment. Councilmember Dalby,
No.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
No.
Councilmember Myers,
Yes.
Councilmember Burke.
No.
Thank you.
3-2.
Okay. So we're back to the motion as presented, to pass and adopt resolution 228, 2020. Motion's been made and seconded. Take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
No.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
No.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2.
Resolution number 229, 2020, accepting the proposal from Sparta Waste Services of Urbandale, Iowa for the collection of non-commercial solid waste, recyclables, bulky items, and yard waste within the city of Ottumwa, Iowa, beginning July 4th, 2021. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 229, 2020.
Point of order, there's no reason to take up this resolution at this time.
I would agree. It's a moot point since we've already awarded it. So let the record reflect that we accepted H1 an affirmative 3-2 vote, and so item 2 is not available.
Resolution number 230, 2020, accept the proposal from Allers and Cooney PC for the provision of general legal services. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 230, 2020.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second?
Okay, and I guess we'll turn that to you, Phil.
Turn it over to me? Okay. So we had, at the last meeting, the council interviewed 3 different firms for the general legal services of city attorney. We had, following that, the discussion and a recommendation to move forward with Allers and Cooney out of Des Moines. Working with them, there is an engagement letter that has been attached to the documentation for you to review. And the resolution is to accept working with Allers and Cooney for general legal services. And just for a point of clarification, that would be the day-to-day operations of the legal services, general legal questions, representing the city for council meetings and other meetings that would be necessary, representing in prosecutions and citations, and moving forward with that. There was one further discussion or point to mention with that is that the city council also wanted the city administrator to have some discretion in utilizing other firms as necessary for specialized legal services, services that may not be offered or offered at a different rate or relationship with the city, such as financial or bond counsel, human resource law, environmental, those kinds of things, economic development as well. And also if there was any potential conflicts of interest, this would serve as a resolution, or if there was increased efficiency in the provision of legal services, there was some discretion available for that. And so with that, unless there's any questions, I'll take those.
And Christina Stone will be our lead attorney.
Christine Stone was named as the official point person, and if she was not available, she had listed Maria Brownell and Jenna Stark or Fisher?
Yeah, Fisher.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for Phil? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution number 231, 2020, accepting the work as final and complete and approving the final pay request for the beach renovations Phase 4 shade structures installation project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 231, 2020.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second?
Thank you. Good evening, Gene. You have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. This project installed new designated shade structures around the outdoor pools, complete with new concrete foundations, prefabricated steel framing, and woven vinyl mesh fabric. The contractor has completed the above referenced work according to the plans and specifications. Upon approval, the council will accept the project and authorize final payment and release all retainages. Total cost of the new shade structure installation was $108,898.54. And the total cost of Phase 4 to date is $643,652.73.
Okay, any questions for Gene? And it's under budget too.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, if there's no questions, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Resolution number 232, 2020, approving change order number 1 in the amount of $5,046.04 and accepting the work as final and complete and approving the final pay request for the 2020 chip seal program. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 232, 2020.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Larry, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor, Council. This project was for the application of chip and seal coat to an existing HMA overlaid streets in an attempt to extend their useful life expectancy. The process includes sealing and patching the existing pavement surface, applying the asphalt emulsion coat, and then topping with a pea gravel wearing surface. We selected the area in which the average HMA surface is 15 years old. By applying the seal coat will extend the useful life another 15 years. The streets that were selected are listed on the summary. Change order 1 increases the contract sum by $5,046.04 for quantity adjustments. Manats Inc. of Ottumwa, Iowa has completed the above referenced work according to the plans and specifications. And this will authorize approval of change order 1 with final payment and releasing of all retainage.
Any questions for Larry? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Resolution number 233, 2020, setting the date of a public hearing on the annexation of certain land to the city of Ottumwa, Iowa, and accepting an application for voluntary annexation of certain land to the city of Ottumwa, and providing for notice of certain city council action. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 233, 2020.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Kevin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. 1120 Pennsylvania. It's my assumption that the private septic system had failed and they would need to connect to a city sewer. So we received that call and then immediately started process to get what would normally be a application for annexation at the time of which they were contiguous. In other words, they sign on with us. We've done this, if you members will remember, with the corporate headquarters for the bank out on the bypass. They sign a sheet that says, once we are contiguous, we will not fight an annexation. In other words, it would be a voluntary annexation at that point. However, with this property, it's already contiguous. So automatically they just, to get that connection and receive those city services, they'll just come into the city. And of course, I gave some basic numbers there, but we feel like it would be somewhere around $1,100, $1,200 on the city tax portion of that. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with taxes, though, in the new assessments. So,
Any questions for Kevin?
Kevin, the good news, though, to me is it does move our annexation, moves the city limits further east.
every little step counts. And in this case, we're good. Good thing for the homeowner here. We didn't hold up the sewer connection or anything. I think they're already connected, but they were good to us, and they did sign our release, and they also signed a waiver on the withdrawing after our public hearing, because within 3 days, of course, you can withdraw after the public hearing. In cases where the annexations are voluntary, usually that's signed off on upon signing the rest of the document, of course, because those folks do intend on coming in for specific purposes.
Okay, no other questions? Take the roll.
I should say, Your Honor, I'm sorry. We did meet, inform the county of it. We met with them today, this morning at 9:30.
Okay.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. We'll move down to item J, public forum. Is there anyone that wants to address the council? Send out a little bit. At this time, I'd like to invite Parks Director Gene Ratchey to come up and make some comments about an event that he's been involved with.
Okay, this past Sunday, there was a very successful disc golf tournament at Wildwood Park, and there were around 80 participants in the tournament. It was put on entirely by volunteers, including a park board member, a Parks Foundation member, and other disc golfers that have been heavily involved with disc golfs for most of their lives. And despite the sleet and the snow, they had a great time. There was a 5-minute special on it on KTVO Sunday night, which they did a great job giving this excellent coverage. So some of the things that made this successful were tee pads and new signs donated and funded by the Parks Foundation, and trees that we planted last fall from a grant from the Farney Foundation that helped beautify Wildwood Park. And right now, Wildwood Park is getting a lot of positive reviews by the general public and disc golfers. So thank you to everyone that helped fund this event and helped put it on this past Sunday. It was an excellent event.
Very good. Thank you. That's kind of information we like to hear. Communications, a couple of comments. This is Character Count Week, and I think it's important that we as a council talk about that, and hope that our young people in our schools are getting some information about character counts. This is part of the former Governor Bob Ray and his wife Billy Ray established the character counts at Drake University, and this week, October 18th to 24th, they're making a special effort, and personally, I've been very supportive of this program and their foundation. I think it's, they talk about 6 pillars, which are trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. So fits right in with future city leaders, and we want people to think about this as they go through their schooling and education. We did receive a challenge grant from the Iowa Department of Economic Authority, and that was a $75,000 grant for 307 East Main Street. And I want to compliment Kevin and his department for working with all the people involved in that, because that was a pretty nasty looking building when I went through it. Regional planning and our engineering staff, and we've really turned, I think, a potential liability into a real positive, and we'll look forward to seeing that develop. Want to remind council and the general public that next Thursday, the 29th, we're going to have a ribbon cutting on Main Street for the Streetscape program. The highlight will be a presentation at 5 p.m. at Main Street, and it'll be right by the alleyway cut through between alley and Canteen Alley there and Main Street. So that's where we'll gather, but there'll be activity going on all afternoon and evening, weather permitting. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. And then this week, I'm also going to be giving a update to the Small Business Alliance. They meet Thursday morning at the hotel, and I was asked to give an update on some city projects and some comments about our comp plan. So it's 7 o'clock in the morning if anybody's interested. With that, is there any comments from the council about anything we should be thinking about? Remind you, mark your calendar for November 14th.
Yep.
Okay. That'll be our goal setting. Anything else? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
At 6:39. Thank you all.